we're studying the Bible, don't let the Greek business and don't let the Hebrew scare you, because we're going to explain it to you anyway. I do teach Greek and Hebrew. I've been a Greek and Hebrew professor for 30 years, so plus. And I try to bring the Bible to you from its original text, not from translations. Anyway, we're on page, what page? We're in the second. Mine doesn't have a page. It's on Unit 2. And on page 18, I'm on the page before 18. We're going to look at this genealogy just a little bit. We talked about it last week. Do you have any questions about it, by the way? The genealogy of the Bible. We studied the first 10 names, inspired names of the children of, well, from Adam all the way to the 10th generation. Who was the 10th from Adam? Come on now, don't look at your book. Who was the 10th from Adam? Who? No, the 10th from Adam. 7 is a number of perfection, brother. You remember that. Who was the 10th from Adam? Come on, there was judgment there. That was great judgment. Great judgment. The 10th from Adam.
You probably listen to Noah. You want Noah.
All right, Noah. All right, Noah. Noah's was the 10th from Adam. Who was the 7th from Adam? Enoch. All right, Enoch was the 7th from Adam. And then he named his son a really weird name. Enoch means teacher, by the way. And Enoch was a type of the rapture. Okay? He was a type of the rapture because what happened to Enoch? He was one of the people that made it through the flood, wasn't he? There's 9 people made it through the flood. Enoch was one of them. He didn't die in the flood. He was taken right up to heaven. He named his son what? Methuselah. What does Methuselah mean? Huh? When he is dead, it shall come to pass. Now Enoch had preached for 300 years. The judgment of God was coming. You can go to the book of Enoch and you can read. I don't know how much of the book of Enoch is inspired of God that we have today, but I do know one thing. The book of Enoch goes back to 300 BC in its state that we have today. The most copied book at the Qumran caves of the Dead Sea Scrolls of Essenes was what? The most copied, prolific book there was what? The book of Enoch. They made more copies of the book of Enoch than anything, and it was lost for hundreds and hundreds of years. Early church writers wrote about it, quoted it. The book of Jude quotes him directly. Almost every book in the New Testament quotes Jude somewhere, including Jesus. You just don't see it because you don't know the book of Jude. See? Well, anyway, the book of Jude preached for 300 years that judgment was coming, and then he named his son, when he is dead, it shall come to pass. Now that was a real... Would you name your child that, young lady? When he's dead, it shall come to pass. But that would be kind of an unusual name, wouldn't it? How about you, Brother Luis? Would you name your child when he's dead, it shall come to pass? Now that's what that name means. And I'll tell you what, every time old Methuselah got sick, I bet they were wondering. Think about it.
Probably took good care of him.
Yeah. Took good care of Methuselah. And then he named his son what? Lamech. All right, Lamech means what?
King of Kings.
King of Kings and Lord of Lords. All right, that's what Lamech means. King of Kings. All right, Methuselah. Well, the year that Methuselah died, the flood came. And how long did Noah preach? How long did God gave man another 120 years? And don't get this confused with lifespan. A lot of people do. They say, well, a man's supposed to live 120 years. Because God said, my spirit will not always strive with man. Nevertheless, I'll give him 120 years. All right, when you study a scripture in the Bible, what do? What are the basic rules of interpretation of scripture, the hermeneutics? Who's speaking? Who's he speaking to, and what's the subject? All right. Who was speaking there in that book of Genesis? God was speaking. What's he speaking about? The judgment. How long did it take Noah? And Noah means what? Peace and safety. How long did it take Noah to build the ark? 120 years. What was he doing all the time he was building? Preaching. All right. So they had 120 years to go, and then the judgment. The ark was finished. God called the animals in. God told Noah to get in the ark, and God shut the door. Now, New Testament writer says, as in the days of Noah, so shall be the second coming of the Son of Man. Everything that we study in the Old Testament has a revelation. It has something pertaining to the New Testament. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established. Is that a law in the Bible, in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
How many Gospels do you have? 4. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established. There were 3 of them, and John was impressed on by God to write the 4th one. There are 3 synoptic Gospels. Did you know that? By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established. How many Gospels were there originally? 3. The synoptics. And John wrote the 4th Gospel. Why did John write the 4th Gospel? Matter of fact, he wrote 1st, 2nd, 3rd John and the book of Revelation.
To demonstrate the deity of God.
To demonstrate that God's Son, that God had become flesh and dwelt among mankind, that the promise of the Old Testament Redeemer had come to be. In fact, God had broke into, Brother Lee has a really a good expression of that. I can't think of it right now. When God broke into space and time, what did you say? He invaded space and time. In His person. God invaded space and time in His person to deliver us. He did. Beautiful. All of the first 10 names that I gave you last week, the 10 inspired names. Adam. And Adam, the root of the word Adam is what? Hebrew. Dom. What is Dom? Blood. All right? God made man in His shadow-casting likeness and His blood-flowing likeness. And He breathed into him the breathings of lives. God didn't make him from a mud doll, by the way. He made him as He formed the dust of the ground from the same elements, He made man. Man came straight from God. Now the Bible says, where is the life? Where is life? The blood. All right. All right. Life is in the blood. Okay? Now, let's see what God did. Going back, and we're covering it again because it's on the next page. We're there again, but we're just going to give you a preview of the coming attractions. God formed man as He formed the dust of the ground to become dust, prophetically. That's what it says. You won't get this except in Hebrew. That's why you dig around in there. Brother Blanton, did you have a ball digging around those Hebrew roots and stuff?
Will do.
Yeah.
In fact, I've got a book at home that has all the Hebrew roots in it.
Yeah. Anyway, Hebrew is a beautiful language. And a lot of things from Hebrew you cannot bring over to English. The Greek is the most fantastically complicated, perfect language that's ever been used by mankind. Greek is. It is the father of many, actually, all Western languages borrow from the Greek because they were very poor, minuscule languages before Greek. The English language, for instance. Did you know less than 1% of 1/10 of a percent of English words are in the English language? All the rest of them are borrowed. They call that language a completely illegitimate language because the English language is a borrowed language from other languages. German wasn't too far off from that either. A lot of German is Greek, and Latin, and Spanish. You see all of these roots. Even Russian. If you can read Greek, you can get a take a stab at Russian also, because the letters are very similar. All right. Now, in the days of Noah, God calls a flood. God had told man what to do under human government. What did he tell him to do? Scatter and multiply. They didn't do that, did they? They didn't scatter and multiply because God knows that whenever you got a lot of people in one place, you got problems. You start crime and manipulation. All right. Let's go on into this supplement to unit number 2. We have Adam, we have Cain, we have Abel, we have Seth. All right. Abel was killed by his brother. What does the name Cain mean? Gotten. When they had Cain, they thought that they had gotten the Messiah. They said, we have gotten a man, even the Lord. What a terrible disappointment that must have been to that mother. Then, in that disappointment, they saw their sin of rebellion against God. The life that God breathed into Adam, they saw spilled on the ground. Now, when Adam was laying there, this formed being from the same elements as the dust of the ground, from the same element. If you form someone from something else, if you make something from something else, what is it called? A secondary creation. Man was a primary creation of God, and he made him in his image. When God laid him out there and formed him, he breathed into him what? What does it say? The breathings of lives. And where does life come from? Blood.
God.
Yeah, that's right. It came right out of him, and he became a living nephesh, a living soul. And when Cain spilled Abel's blood, he spilled his life out on the ground. His life out on the ground. Now, the Zeth means what? Zeth.
Substitute.
All right. Who was the promised heir of Adam? Wasn't Abel. Who was the promised heir? Cain, because he was the firstborn. He was the spiritual leader of the family. He was a total flop, though, but that's what he was. Actually, Abel was never a threat to him at all, period. He was the firstborn. Even though he was doing the wrong thing, he was still the firstborn. You go back and find out what happened with Jacob and Esau. Who was the firstborn there? Esau was the firstborn. And he lost his birthright. His father still was going to give the birthright to who? He was still going to give the birthright to Esau, even though he knew he wasn't going to do it. And God allowed, in his permissive will, he allowed Jacob to get that one from him, didn't he? Tricked him. All right, then we have Zeth, and we have all these 10 names. Zeth means substitute, and then we come down to Noah, peace and safety. And then Noah had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Ham is of the dark races. Like I said last week, the dark races invented everything that's ever been invented, including music and every initial invention. And the Japhethites, the Japhethite means what? Japheth.
Fair.
Huh?
Fair.
Well, fair, but it means more than that. It means something else. Spreading. 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 They spread out all over the place. And then we have Shem. Shem means what? Name or monument. Through Shem, God would, this would be the promised land. Through Shem. Okay? So we have Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And I said last week, jokingly, but it's absolutely true. Ham invented, his descendants invented everything. Japheth improved those inventions, and Shem made money on them. And I'll tell you what, God has blessed the Jewish people in that way. That's an absolute fact. When they went back to the land May 14th, 1948, how did they get the land back? How did they go over there? What did they do over there? Basically have bought it with their money. They bought the land back, and they fought for it and paid for it with their blood. All right? And then Shem, we have Terah. It goes down to Terah. And Terah had Haran, and he had Abraham, 2 sons. Okay? And where were they? Where did they live? The Ur of the Chaldees. That's Babylon, isn't it? You know, you think about that. Back at that period of time, that was one of the most populated, advanced cities in the world. They have found libraries. They had one of the largest libraries known in the world there. They had plumbing in their houses. This was a great metropolis. And God told Abraham something. Now, his name wasn't Abraham then, was it? What was it? Abram. All right. Abraham means what? What?
Oh no, his name means go to the meeting when it's finished, but I forget what it means.
Oh, what did Abram mean? Do you remember what Abram means? Exalted father. Uplifted father. He was an exalted father. The word Abba in, remember when Jesus said Abba, Father? What did he say, Father? Father, Father. Abba, Abba, Father, Father. Now that goes way back into Persian. It goes in Chaldee and in Hebrew. And when a little baby is born, the Oriental mind says the first name that he says, the first thing he says is his daddy's name. His daddy. And when a little baby goes up, you know how they did that? They said he's calling for daddy. Calling for daddy. Now that's the root, the etymology of that name. That's the name Abraham. Abram means exalted father. Now, Abraham means exalted father of a multitude. There you go. Exalted father of a multitude. Now, Haran had a son. His name was Lot. Okay? And then Lot had 2 sons in that relationship that he had. Moab and Ammon. The Ammonites and the Moabites. Yeah. Troublelites. Now Abraham, he had some children also, a whole mess of them, actually. But the one promised son that Abraham had was what? Isaac. Isaac. That's his name, Isaac. What does Isaac mean? Laughter. His name means laughter. And then he had Ishmael, and he had Midian, and he also was the father of the Midianites. He had a whole bunch of children. All right? Now, Isaac had Jacob and Esau. And Esau, as you're looking at your little map, like this, I'm taking time to explain this to you, okay? Better put it on camera, too, so the camera can see it out there in the world, okay? That's what it looks like. That's the one you should be looking at right there. If you don't have one, see if we can get you one. All right, Isaac. Now, Isaac had Jacob and Esau. Now, look over here. Ishmael is the father of the Arab nation, and Midian is the father of the Midianites, and through the Midianites came Herod, along with, they had mixed up with the Esau's descendants. So, was he really the heir? Is that the one that God wanted to be the heir? Let me tell you a little, jumping ahead just a little bit. Jacob, we have the 12 tribes of Israel. That's where Israel, the nation of Israel, began. Now see, the promise is over here. The promise was with Abraham. The fulfillment of that promise was the nation of Israel. And the nation of Israel was supposed to lead the world to the Messiah and to righteousness and to God's righteous kingdom. Who was the administrator of God's kingdom during this time? Who was the administrator in God's kingdom? God always has the administrator in His kingdom. He has a kingdom, doesn't He? What is God's kingdom? The cosmos. It's the cosmos. God is the king of all the heaven and the earth. Right now we're having to put up with the God of this age. Who is that? Who's the god of this age? Satan. In the world that we live in. But it's only for a while. Just remember that it's only for a while. Well, when God put Adam in the garden, God made Adam in His image and He told him what to do. Guard the garden. Guard it from whom? The interloper. Satan. All right? Did he do it? For a while he did. But then Satan got next to his wife, didn't he? The most precious thing that he had in this world, his wife. He should have been guarding her too. And she was talking to an animal. Out there was nothing wrong with talking to animals. Adam, who was Adam's companions before he had Eve? All the animals. God did not create the animals for food. He created them to be companions. They still have a little of that in them. I'm going to tell you. They still have a little of that. If you look, and don't look so high over your animals, look down on them and you listen to them. They love, they feel, they think. They do. And sometimes they hate. Got a little old duck out on that farm right now. He's pretty sick. After the pony died last week ago Friday, the duck got sick. He's mourning and going out there. What's he do, Marilyn? He walks, he looks at that pasture and looks from one end to the other for that pony. She's gone. He wouldn't come out of his pen for 4 days. Now he's just kind of laying down. And he's my buddy. Ken Blinn came out on the farm at one time, and when you come out on the farm, Brother David, who follows me all over the farm? The duck. Every step I take, that duck is with me. My companion. Marilyn's in the kitchen. He followed me all over the place, and then he wants to sit down, wants me to hold his little head in my hand, and he puts his foot on my foot. And he wants me to hug him every morning before he takes off and starts his day. Ken Blinn says, I heard about a man and his dog, but this is a man and his duck. He said, you know what? That duck mine's better than the dog. But we do. Our animals do. Your animals reflect you. Did you know that? They reflect you how you are. They mirror you sometimes. Is that right? Well, it wasn't unusual that Eve was talking to an animal. But that animal was lying. That animal, what was his Hebrew name? Nahash. Say that. Nahash. Now, Nahash doesn't even sound good, does it? Now, Adam must have named him because it said that he was the most deceitful of all animals. And evidently, he was beautiful. Extremely beautiful. Now, just think about it for a while. Lucifer, when God created Lucifer, according to Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14, what did Lucifer look like? His form was beautiful. All right? Now, evidently, this snake was kind of like the head of the animal kingdom, evidently. Now, he walked up on his feet at one time. I don't know whether he looked like a lizard, what he looked like, but he may have, you know, snakes are some of the most beautiful creatures in the world if you look at them. Their colors and things, they're beautiful. We just don't want to be around them. God told Adam, He said, I'll put active hatred between you and that woman and her seed and your seed. Well, we've always had trouble with that ever since because a bunch of them snakes are very poisonous, aren't they? Brother Travis Hubbard was my closest bosom friend that I ever had in the ministry, I guess. He came to my house one time and I caught a couple of gopher snakes. I had a gopher snake and a king snake in there in a deal. He said, Brother Jim, that's not hush. And then he used to give him the creeps, so I took him and put him outside so it didn't bother him. Put him in there, and then he was preaching one day. He told me, he said, boy, he tamed these creatures. He said, that's like trying to tame a scorpion. Maybe some people have pet scorpions, but I don't want it. But the animals were made to be our companions. And that animal, that Nahash, was being used by Satan. Satan was speaking through him. He loaned his body to him. Now, demon spirits seek to dwell in human or animal flesh, don't they? They don't have any bodies. We know that from the scriptures. This is demonology or pneumatology, whatever you want to call it. Now, when Jesus was there on the Sea of Galilee, he went over there in the Gadarene region. Remember that? And on the other side of that's the Decapolis, the 10 cities there. When he came over there, he ran into a couple of demonized people. One of them we call Legion in the Bible. You ever hear of that? Yeah. All right. And he had how many demons in him? A bunch of them. About 2,000 demons in him. Okay? And the demons spoke to Jesus. And evidently, they spoke loud enough to where everybody could hear. They spoke through the vocal cords of that man. All right? They spoke through the vocal cords of that man. And what did they request of Jesus? First of all, they made a statement. Son of God, what are you doing here? It's not our time yet. Did they know anything about eternal hellfire?
Really did.
They surely did. They knew about it. The Old Testament talks about hell, Hades, Sheol. Sheol means the place asked about. Hades means the place not seen. All right? But they knew.
Did you say Haley?
Hades is the place not seen, the unseen place. All right? And Sheol is the place asked about. The name Saul comes from Saul was the king that Israel asked for. So God gave them asked for. Sheol is the place asked about. Hebrew language is rich in that. Well, what did those demons request for Jesus to do?
Let him
What?
lead to the pig.
Allow us to go into those swine over there. Do not throw us. They didn't want to be disembodied. So they said, allow us to go into that herd of swine. There's a big herd of swine there. Now, evidently, animals have some sort of volition. I don't understand all about this. We just see a few places in the Bible. That snake in the garden allowed Lucifer to use him. So he was cursed. The snake was cursed above all the other animals. That curse will even go into the millennial reign. That snake's still going to be walking on his belly right over here. That was a curse. Now, what? Those swine, did they want those demons in them?
No.
They made a choice, didn't they? What did swine do?
Kill themselves.
They drowned themselves. They run off into the Sea of Galilee and drowned themselves. Now let me tell you a little bit of Judaistic rabbinical history. Okay? In the rabbinical history, where was the door, the gate of hell? Where was the gate of hell according to Judean history? Huh? The bottom of the Sea of Galilee. They had some violent storms that come up there, and they said hell is moving. That storm that Jesus was on the Sea of Galilee out there, they say that hell was opening up a door. And it was causing all these storms. So, now, according to the rabbinical history, now I'm not saying this is true or anything at all. This is rabbis. According to the rabbinical history, and they were standing around there, weren't they? Now these demons that came out of this man went into those swine, and those swine drowned themselves. And where did they drown themselves? In the Sea of Galilee, which, according to their philosophy, was the gate of hell. So they went there anyway. The swine chose not to live with those things in them. All right, Esau had Edom, Idumean, Ottoman, the Turkish nation of Turkey. Now turn your page over to age number 2, the Adamic age. Now we're going to recap some of this stuff. All right, over on page number 18. Page number 18. Do we have any more of these here at all?
No.
We're out of them. Will you come back next week and we'll get you one? All right. Chapter number 7. Number 1,
It's page 20 in our setting.
page 20 in yours? All right, I better write that down. Page 20 in yours. All right, my page numbers are different than yours. We have, Tony rewrote this whole thing for you and printed them. There's Tony right there. That's the girl that made this possible for you to have this. All right? Because there were no more copies of this anywhere. I have the only copies, as far as I know, of this syllabus. It says write out Genesis 1:26 and 1:27. Did you do that?
I did.
All right. Now, let's read it. Did you do that, Sister Andy? Floyd did it.
I didn't.
You did it? Well, I want to see how many you did. All of you that did it, raise your hand. All right. Amen. Oh, Brother Mike, you did that too, huh? All right. That's great. Now, how many of you wrote it with the Hebrew inflection in it?
I have it written in my Bible that way.
You haven't written in your Bible that way. Would you go, please, in your Bible, Brother David, even though it is an Episcopalian Bible?
Well, it's not. Part of it's not anymore.
Oh, part of it has been in modified Episcopalian Bible. All right? That Episcopalian Bible, that's King James, you know, they made that. They wrote the King James Version against Baptists and against the Catholics. That was the purpose of it. King James wanted the Bible to be in the hands of his people, but he didn't want a translation that went against what his doctrine did. And when the Baptists complained about the King James Version, they burned so many of them, they said they ran out of firewood in England because they had to burn so many of them complaining Baptists. They blamed their lack of firewood on them. Well, anyway, they complained, and now we're using the thing. I don't know how that ever happened, but here we are. That's people don't remember history. All right, Brother David.
And Elohim said, "Let us."
All right, who's Elohim? That's the triune God in Elohim. Elohim. All right? Elohim. Something like
Where are
this.
you reading, dude?
126.
It's something like that, okay?
Chapter
Elohim.
1:26.
Elohim comes from El, that means God. Haya and Im, that's plural. And that word is the Almighty God and the Creator, and He's plural. He's three or more. Because in Hebrew there is, well, even in Greek, there's singular, dual, and plural. And this is plural, three or more. And who is that representing? The triune God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So here we say we have all of God saying this. So now we know that the triune God is speaking. And we have something reflected in that.
And Elohim said, "Let us form
See
Adam."
that? See the word us?
Us, yeah,
Us.
plural.
All right. Let us, because that's a plural verb.
Let us form Adam in our shadow-casting, blood-flowing image, and let them have sovereign over the fish of the sea, and
Okay,
over the
now
fowl
hold
of
on
the
right
air.
there. It's talking about them. Them. Now did God, that is talking, that's prophetic future, is what it's talking about. Now God didn't make man and woman in the beginning, did He? What did He do? He made Adam, and He breathed into him the breathings of lives. He breathed blood, life-giving blood into him, and he became a living soul, a nephesh, alive, all right? And then what happened? He gave him all the animal kingdom to be his companions. And it said there wasn't one out there totally suitable for his companionship. So then what happened? What did God do?
He made woman.
He did what?
He made woman.
He hypnotized him. He hypnotized Adam. That's what it says in the original language. He hypnotized him. Did you know that? Hypnos comes from that word. He hypnotized him. He put him in a deep sleep. You know today that they're starting to hypnotize people when they're operating on them sometimes. God hypnotized Adam back then, a long time ago. He hypnotized him. It caused him a deep sleep to fall upon him. And then it says he took from his sides, plural, not singular, sides, plural. What did he take from Adam? He took from his sides. He took bone, He took flesh and he took blood and he formed it into a beautiful little creature that he called Isha. Isha. Say Isha. Isha. Now say Ish. Ish. Ish is the name for man. And Isha, what do you think Isha means? Woman, out of man. And what does woman mean if you look it up in your etymological dictionary? What does woman mean? Out of man.
It's hard to tell.
Well, he took the prettiest part, didn't he?
Apparently.
He did.
In
He
most
took,
cases.
yeah, he took the prettiest part. And he made woman. Brother Bill, you didn't say nothing. You're quiet
I
on
was just
it.
thinking, there's a rib. I'd like to clarify that if that didn't come from.
It's not
flesh,
rib.
because they're a pain in
It's
the
not a
butt.
rib. He didn't take a rib from man. He took bone from man.
I'm trying to keep my
He
mouth
took
shut.
bone. I don't know how he did this, but it said he closed up the flesh instead of her. Also.
Say that again.
He closed up the flesh instead of her. That's beautiful. Brother, did Brother Hubbard teach you that in the book of Genesis, Brother? Blank?
Unfortunately, from my Hebrew, you can tell Brother Hubbard didn't teach me a lot.
Oh.
He taught me all he could.
we did I think we did the book of Hebrew, or book of Genesis 3 times. I had him for 6 years of Hebrew. 6 years. And advanced reading and research. Boy, I loved it. Every last little tiny bit of it. And it rubbed off on me a little bit some, because now Brother Hubbard isn't here, but I can teach you, and I'm dependent upon you to teach others. So it's going on your shoulders now.
Well, learn us.
Learn you, huh? That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm taking the extra little space. He clothed up, he took woman out, Isha out, and he closed up the flesh instead of her, is what it literally says. He closed up the flesh instead of her, where he took her from. All right, now, Brother David, let's go on. Read. I want this modified Episcopalian version of the Bible here now.
Okay, and let them have sovereign over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and the cattle, and over all the earth.
All right. And let them have dominion over the fishes of the sea, all the different species of fish of the sea, and over the wing flappers. And the word wing flapper, I like it in Lakota. Lakota, that's Sioux. Okay? Lakota is Wombly. Wombly.
I thought you
Well-
were going to ask that question, I was going to answer.
See, she knows a little Lakota.
Yeah, that's what one was put here for.
What?
What one was put here for to correct you.
Wombly. My little girl, when she was young, when she was a baby, I taught her all the Indian names for animals. When she saw a spider, it was an ictomy. When she saw a rabbit, it was a waboose. When she saw a snake, all of these different things. When she saw all these, the different animals, and then when she saw a bird, it was a wombly. Now, in Lakota, all birds are womblies. They're all wing flappers. That's what it means, wing flapper. And in Hebrew, it's the same way. It's wing flappers of the air. The wing flappers. When she went to school, I told them, I said, now, they said, what language does she speak? And I said, well, I speak a little Hebrew to her, a little Lakota and English, and Greek. But I said, they were going to give her a test, and I told them, I said, all the animal names are Lakota, Sioux. Well, she failed her test because she gave them the Sioux names for all of them. She said, look here, she said that was a wing flapper, and this was an ictomy, and a waboose, and all that stuff. And I said, well, if you knew Lakota, you'd know what it meant. So I got them straightened out on that. They have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the wing flappers of the air, and over the domesticated cattle. That's what it means. And over all of the ha'aretz. Ha'aretz. The earth. Ha is the Hebrew definite article, and aretz is the earth. And over every ictomy, over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So, go on, Brother David.
So Elohim created man in his image. In the image of Elohim created he him, male and female created he them.
All right. Now we know that. And later on, you know, the Hebrew makes a statement, and then it clarifies the statement. Yeah, he created Adam and Eve. He created he them. All right. And then later on, it tells you in great detail in the next chapter how he did that and what happened. Okay. Now, Brother Bill, he didn't make a mistake.
Let's clarify. I didn't say he made a mistake, but he knew man wasn't going to take this standing up, so he called it deep sleep. In other words, he drugged him. That's the first. Slipped him a Mickey Finn and laid him.
Well, he said he wasn't happy with all them animals.
You know what amazes me, Jim?
He wanted a companion that was worthy of him. Women, where are you, all of you? God wanted a companion that was worthy of the man. You're worthy.
Jim, I might ask what amazes me.
And worthy comes from the same thing, worship.
Is it takes a man and a woman, because everything is opposite on them. God made us so that together as one, you know, we're the same as animals. Our left side, right side of the brain, everything about us is opposite. It takes us together. And that amazes me. You know, and I joke about it, but without Joanne, I'm only half a person. You know,
God took Adam and he put him to sleep. He hypnotized him and he took out of him Isha. He took out of Isha, and they were two again. They were not one, now they're two. And then he put them together in marriage. And that is beautiful. And that's what we're talking about. Marriage. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know what I'd do without my wife. She's just my other half, and that's my best half. You know, your children are a reflection of you and your wife and all of that stuff. And your children are an extension of your life. That's the only thing you'll leave back in this world. Is to emanate you and to propagate your person is your children. And you need to teach your children the right thing. You know, it's very important. You need to love your wives, and wives, you need to love your husbands. The Bible says that Sarah called Abraham what? Lord and Master. And evidently, Abraham listened to Sarah quite a little bit. We know one time he listened to her that probably wasn't a good idea. But he did, didn't he? All right. Caused a lot of problems. That time he should have disseminated that information just a little bit.
Yeah.
Number two on that page. Man was the what? And
He was henpecked. He got into a lot of trouble listening to his wife.
he did get in trouble listening to his wife. He should have been talking instead of
A lot of
listening.
times, yeah.
Yeah, he should have been talking instead of listening. Man was the last and crowning act of creation. Just think about it. As you go back in the book of Genesis and you see the creation, we studied that from Hebrew here a while back, didn't we? We went and we studied it. As God created the heavens and the earth, He created the atmosphere. He created the waters. He caused the waters to go one place and the land to go another place. And He created all of the atmosphere, and He created the vegetation. What did the vegetation do at that time? Why did God need vegetation?
Feed.
He needed it for feed. Okay? For feed. Well, yeah, feed and air. Because, you know, all animals produce carbon monoxide, and plants produce oxygen, and plants also bring from the earth all the elements that you need to live on. Now, when God created Adam, he was a vegetarian. When God created all those animals, they were all vegetarians. Nobody ate anybody. They all got along together. Over here in the millennial reign of Jesus Christ, right over here, we're going to see the animal kingdom put back into order. After sin, after the flood, God put in the animals the fear of each other and the fear of man. For why? For self-preservation, because that's what we call the food chain. There wasn't a food chain before. Now in the future, in heaven again, there will not be a food chain. Animals aren't going to eat each other. They're going to get along. The lion's going to lay down without the lamb being on the lion's belly. God gave me a wonderful lesson of that in a little pony that I had on, Peanut, the little pony. That was the most unusual animal I ever saw in my life. I've been around horses since I was a little kid. But Peanut, by the time we got her, we put her out on the farm with the other animals. She adopted every animal on that farm. Every cat wanted to see her and be with her. They would go out there, especially in the wintertime, and the cats would lay down on her back when she was laying down, and they would sleep on her because she was warm. And she allowed them to do that. And they'd sit up there. You ever had a cat go this to you? Well, they'd go do that to Peanut. Didn't matter to Peanut. She's going to be right there with them. The duck would come out there and lay down and sleep with her. If you want to see a picture of this, you go to the website after James M. Phillips and family, and look at those photoshops, and you'll see them all laying together out there in the pasture. The only one left in that bunch is the duck, and he's going. The duck would go out there and lay down right by her, and it wasn't just that duck. We had another duck called Sunny before that, and that duck would follow her in her shadow wherever she went, all over that pasture. And the cats would follow her. And when I'd put her out there in the barn in the wintertime, and the chickens would go lay down by her. The cats would go lay down by her. That cassette was even... The cats would lay down by her. The chickens would lay down by her. The pig even liked her. And pigs don't like anybody. But that horse would sit there and just look through that fence at that pig like this and study that pig and imitate that pig. I never saw anything like it in my life. I used to say that was my millennial pony. That's the way the animals are going to get along. When she'd go eat, the duck would follow her around, and she'd get some of her food and drop it on the ground for the duck to eat, and the chickens would come over. Everybody was following Peanut around. She's feeding all of them. Never saw anything like it. Animals got along. That's why they didn't have any trouble in the ark. Animals got along. Everybody was fine. Everybody was at peace. Just think about this. When God created Adam, when he was a crowning creation of God, when he put him in that garden, everything was at peace. And he was supposed to keep the peace. Did he? What a mess he made of it. Man was the last and crowning act of creation. The crowning act. What's a crowning? That's like the icing on the cake, isn't it? That's what makes things pretty. You can get a cake, and you can cook a cake. My wife cooks cakes and stuff. She's always cooking something. Somebody said something a while ago, where was Marilyn when I followed me around the farm? Well, Marilyn's there cooking something while the duck's following me. You can make a cake, but what makes a cake pretty? What makes a cake pretty? The decoration. You can cook a steak, and the steak tastes good, but then in a fine restaurant, they put all kinds of little fancy things around it and make it look good too, don't they? They put all this fancy stuff around to make it look good. Well, God created man in his image, and he put him over the earth to be the administrator of his kingdom. He was the boss. Now, before Adam was the boss, who was the boss over the earth, over the material creation of God? Lucifer. So why do you think he still was causing trouble there? Even though God had replaced him, he hadn't given up yet, had he? He just kept showing up to work after he'd been fired. wasn't going to give up. And did he get involved there? Yeah, he did. All right. Let's go on. Number 3. We're almost finished for today. In what 3 ways is man made in the likeness of God? All right. Number A, body or material. Body or material. Corresponding to whom in the Godhead?
Satan.
Father.
Material.
No, Jesus. Jesus.
What?
Jesus.
Jesus, the Son of God, or God the Son. All right. He's made in God's image in 3 ways. Material, in the likeness of God, in his physical likeness. It said that he made him in his shadow casting likeness, in his blood-flowing image, his spiritual image. Okay? So he was material. Now, did Jesus exist before he was born into this world through Mary? Yes, he did. He existed. Who walked in the garden with Adam? Jesus did. All right. What does Jesus mean, by the way? Jehovah saves. Now, who? God became known by a name that we can't say. It's kind of like Ihi. If you tried to say it, it would be like Ihi, the name. It has no vowels in it. It's 4 consonants. And you cannot say the name. We call it Jehovah. Jesus. All right? We call him Jehovah. Jehovah means what?
He who shall be king.
He who shall become. That's what it means.
Well, I've heard Yahweh.
Yeah. Well, that you can't really say it.
Somebody else just
That's somebody's interpretation of it.
vowels in it.
Okay? I say Jehovah, but if you try to, I said, Brother Hubbard, how would you pronounce that name? And he said, it's unpronounceable. But if you tried, it would be something like, that. You really can't, even that's wrong, and I've shown this to you before. Here is the name Jehovah that we would say, and we say it so easily. Say it. All right? Now, this is just English, but I'm going to explain it to you in Hebrew. All right? See that? We have an E that's a vowel, we have an O that's a vowel, and we have an A that's a vowel. Now, say that. That's impossible. You cannot say that name. So they referred to this person as the name or the word that they would write down in the Bible. After Moses wrote the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings, Bereshit, the book of beginnings, okay, they began to know of the person of God, but every time they came to the name or the word in the Old Testament, they would take a special pen out and they would write it with a special ink, and they would lay it aside until that name was used again, and they would speak of that name as the name or the Word of God. It was the name of God or the Word of God. That word which meant the name of God. Now in Genesis 1, or not Genesis 1, but John 1:1, it says, in beginning, singular beginning, kept on being the Word. Now how should that be translated? That is not a Greek idiom, but that is a Hebraism. In beginning, the absolute extremity of eternity past. In beginning, kept on being the Hologos. That is the Jehovah. That's that name. That's that word that was never spoken. And the Word kept on being an inseparable part of the Godhead because the Word kept on being God. And then John 1:14 says, Kai Hologos Sarkaganato, and the Jehovah, flesh, he became. Because Jehovah means he who shall become. All right. Thank you for your attention today.
What did you see written on the cross?
What?
When you see things written on the cross, what do they write on this?
Oh, they wrote in 3 languages on the cross. They wrote in Greek and Latin and Hebrew, the King of the Jews. All right, the King of the Jews. Yes, young.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
What you're, the things that you're saying are so different than the Bible. And it's because you're going to the original language.
That
So
is.
that's why it is different.
Yes.
Because, like you said, Abraham had many children, but in the Bible it says he didn't have any children until Isaac and
Ishmael was his
Ishmael.
firstborn. Ishmael was his firstborn, but that wasn't the promised child.
Right, but I mean, in the Bible though it says he didn't have any children till those two. And you said that he had many
after
children.
Sarah died, he married again, and he had more children. Because he was going to be the father of multitudes. And he did literally have many children as the sands of the sea. All the whole Middle East is populated with Abraham's descendants. He's the father of all of them.
But many things that you say aren't in the Bible.
They're
right?
they're in the original Bible, in the Greek and Hebrew, but not in English, not in the translation.
By this being the father of the Jews and the father of the Arabs. You know, Ishmael is the head of the Arabs.
Yeah. All of that is in the
Isaac
Bible.
is the head of the Jews.
What I told you about Ishmael and all of those, that's all in the Bible.
Nations right there.
Yeah. All of that's in there. But the words, how we have translated from Hebrew into English, how God created Adam, and all of those things, now that's only in Hebrew. You do not see it. And when King James was translated, that's what they call the authorized version, authorized by the Church of England. And nobody changed it for so many years. And it was accepted so soundly that even when they made different translations, they followed the mistakes in King James.
Like I've never heard anyone say Jesus walked with Adam in the garden. I've never heard that
That's
before.
what you call a pre-Adamic Christ.
You know, and it's so interesting what you're saying. Things
Well-
that I've never heard before.
Well,
I'm just astounded.
Our classes are really kind of, I try to teach people that can't even read and write. I teach young people, and we've got people from here from teenagers to 90 years old in this class. But there are people that are real interested in studying and finding out what's in that book, in that Bible. And it goes all over the world. We have 40,000 people coming to the websites a month. That's a lot of people.
Now, did you used to teach in a seminary?
Yes. I was a professor of Bible language.
Here in Bakersfield?
No, I taught in the Los Angeles area, but I have taught here. I teach Greek and Hebrew here for the last 12 years in this church.
In this church?
Yeah, in this church. Well, I've got to turn you loose on the world and let you go out and do something eternal now this week. Brother David, thank you. And come back next week. You know where you started, and we'll see if we can get you some more of these. I know I got a few of them.
So there's some, I see people with binders. Is
Yes,
there-
they put them in binders and they get all their notes. I'm going to try to get you some stuff, and I'll get that to you. I need to turn the camera off. Brother David.
Okay, we have some prayers